Hey everybody. So today we're not talking about a specific model. Right now we got the Toyota 4Runner 2021 Nightshade. But what I want to talk about, you see how dirty it is right now? We're going to analyze that dirt to call out in advance what's going to be the problem with the paint and the rust on this type of vehicle. Because that type of design from the dirt actually tells us a lot about what's going to be the damage, the rock chips, the rust, where the paint is going to fade. So what I'll do, I'll just go step by step and show you how I learn from cars like this, and they usually can prevent future problems. So the first thing we'll check is when you look at your vehicle and you see right now, the top is nearly completely clean, but the bottom part is completely dirty. Why is that? It's because right now the vehicles are made to be really aerodynamic, and all the pressure of the air comes from the front, really follows that windshield, goes over the top. But we got an extra of air that always go to the side, and this creates a turbulence to the side of the vehicle. So all the air that comes from the front to the side will follow the side doors and will enter in contact with the air from the top. And this creates some type of turbulence or cyclone or whatever. A guy that I was working with called them the road tornadoes. So anyways, and that is what that makes that specific spread that you can see. And when you look at it, it is really more like a sandblast. It's really like splatter. So those type of splatter usually comes from your turbulence that comes from your car, just the way it's shaped. But here, if you look at those lines that you see here and there, and you can actually see them within the turbulence, those are either rocks or just accumulation that comes from the front, either from the tires, and they go straight. They got too much mass to be affected by whatever the pressure of air that's coming from the top and creating the turbulence. That means it's coming so fast, it's just going straight. And those usually will tell you where you'll get rock chip, future rust, and sometimes sandblast. Like an example, if we stop at the handle, if you look at the splatter of the turbulence at the bottom here, look at the handle, how much buildup there is right in front there. But this one is dry. Look at this one. If I look at the second one, this one is actually wet. I prefer to see the dry type over the wet type. Why so? It's because no matter what happened over time, they're gonna start to get sandblasted. But when it's wet like this, as soon as there is a crack within that paint, way faster than this one, as soon there's a crack, and since it's wet, the water's gonna get in, freeze, expand the paint and break it. And it's gonna happen way faster than that one. So I know for a fact that my back door handle will go bad before my front one, right? So at least only the front one got the sensor, not the one in the back. So an example, the Hummer is one of the worst for that type of buildup. As you can see, I don't have much compared to the other one, and you can already see those lines from the tires, right? But what happened, it completely sandblasted the doors. And that's why they always rust around the handles. So if you look at it, it completely eat the side of the chrome, and I believe in this one is the same, and you can actually see the black under the chrome. So that is something to stay aware of. So if you buy a brand new car, if you got a car and it's still in good shape, and you see that, there's not much you can do. You can actually buy those transparent plastic and maybe try to put a little band over it to protect it. Some vehicles got them, others don't. Really depends what the manufacturer was ready to do for that type of vehicle. So for those, maybe a 5 to 6 year, maybe 7 years, if we don't drive too much on the highway. If you drive a lot on the highway, I'm pretty sure between 5 to 7 years, those end holes in the back will be gone. But if you don't drive that much, it can last 20 years. Who knows? Right? You look at the Hummer, it's not that bad, but the guy wasn't running that much on the highway, right? So, okay. So we start back with the pattern, more the specific type. So the first thing we can look at, we can see that build up. That's where all the water from the engine. So what happened, we got snow, ice, whatever, that builds up under the engine. It may become some ice, then the engine warm up. There's a bit of water, even from driving, that builds up, and this is where it gets out. And this is just an accumulation of dirt, salt, and etc. So since my fender is metal and the bottom is plastic, I'm pretty sure that around there and here, we got 2 metal bolts with a clip. So this means that clip will rust over time. So I already know in a few years from now, I'll start getting a bit of rust right from under there, and that bolt is going to break when I change it, and there's a big chance I break that clip. So right there and right here. After that, we look at this, and we see those little lines. So from just the lines, even if I look at the hood, I can already see that I may get rock chips really in the front lip. So if ever you're driving your car and you're wondering, maybe I should start thinking about filling up rock chips, those are the location that you need to keep an eye on. So you always come and clean them up just to make sure they're not rock chips. Just make sure to fill them up. So this is going to help you out to prevent rust on your hood. But as you can see, the hood on this model is not that bad. So what's happening, we'll get a lot of rock chip from either the front of the nose, where we got that angle, we see all the accumulation right there. And then from here, it's more scratches. They're longer. So that's not bad. I prefer to get longer scratches to buff them than actually lines that are shorter. That means it's really hitting straight and jumping off. For the skirt, well, it's doing its job. That's the purpose of the skirt. You can see all that build up, really, really dense all around it. And then we got the normal, how can I say that? Overflow that just get caught in the turbulence and goes over there. So that's not bad at all. But those, when they're thick like this, usually it's more like water droplets than actual like rocks or a little line like those. Really fine and short lines. Then we can look here and we see on the pillar, we got a few spots that actually will get rock chipped. I'm pretty sure I'll need to keep an eye on those A-pillar, and when we look at the mirror, after a little while, it's going to need a little buff to bring it back. So that's another thing I'll keep an eye on, but it's not the end. Where it's interesting, if depending on your type of vehicle, on this one you can see it seems pretty even. There's no big lines like those all through it. You see those little lines here and there, or thick water droplets? It seems pretty clean. So that's actually a good sign for me. Because if you would get a lot of little lines all around it, there's a big chance over time you'll start to get rock chips just on the edge, right where I'm putting my finger. And then it's going to start to rust and go behind the door and actually get that side of the, how can I say that, the lip that's maintaining the door together. I'm just going to show you. So when you're looking at the door, you got a little lip that is literally the front skin that's been bent over it, and then they close it down. So what you don't want is that lip to rust and getting water from the back. So from there, the front looks not bad. You got a bit of rock chip around it, but all of a sudden you're starting to get water inside your door, and the bottom's gonna rust. And you're gonna wonder why, because the old paint is beautiful, but you're starting to get like rust that's keep popping through it, but you clean it and the metal looks fine. It's because literally you're rusting from the inside. So seeing this, it's a good thing. It's not that bad. You cannot, how can I say that? You can get rid of damage. It's impossible. If you don't drive your car, then you're gonna get rid of it. You're not gonna have any problem with the rest. But you buy a car to drive it and use it. So at least I'm just giving you little hints to what to look for and when to patch it. So when you see those little rock chips showing up around that edge, fill them up as soon as possible. Do not let them go bad. When I look more up, I see a few lines, but there is nothing really on the edge itself. So not too concerned. I always keep an eye on that, but that's not too bad. As we see, the bottom is all wet. We can see actually the design within it and all up there. That's the most dangerous part of this vehicle, but we're gonna go there. So you see how wet it is at the bottom? That's pretty much the buildup. Nowadays, it's not that much of a concern. Most vehicles now are being shot with gravel guard, rock guard, etc. before painting over it. So usually the paint right there got a bit more flexibility and it prevents it from cracking and actually breaking. So just make sure to clean them once in a while. Same thing for your bottom skirt, at least to get a pressure wash from the back, or I don't know what you use to clean your vehicle, but just make sure that you remove that once in a while. But beside that, it's not that bad. It's really not that bad. Then we'll move to the second door, do the exact same thing. You see here, we got a little buildup right there and a few lines. I'm more concerned about this edge, and what I believe is happening, it's really building up here, and maybe it actually just reflect towards the top, right? Just because of the pressure of the bottom with all the turbulence is just pushing it up. So maybe keeping an eye on that corner, as we can see. Beside that, it's pretty even. We got that corner that's wet all by itself, right there. So either the back tire is actually throwing stuff towards the front, or there is a buildup, but we don't see the buildup being square and even. So this is kind of scary. For me, when it's wet like that, big buildup, there's a big chance that this, within 5 to 7 years, we're gonna start seeing some rust, and that little lip I was talking about is gonna be rusted, and the water is gonna come in from there. So the paint's gonna go off, this is gonna rust, and the lip itself is gonna rust too. And that's gonna be a pain to change and repair. So at that point, you need a new skin. So it's not fun. If you can prevent that, keep an eye on it every year. Put back some paint just to make sure you fill up that holes. The best anti-rust is the primer. So as long as your primer is still there, just fill it up with some paint and you'll be fine. It's okay. Just keep doing it every year. It's just a little bottle of black paint or whatever the paint of your car, and you fill it up. But yeah, just be careful for that. Then we'll keep looking, and this is the danger zone. So what's happening right there? It's extremely bad, because this for me is the type of zone that I do not want to see on a car. We got turbulence and it's completely wet. So this means this is not just some dry dirt. It's literally a buildup of water, of dirt, of salt, the whole thing. And we even get accumulation that doesn't go away. With all the turbulence, there's a huge buildup. That means the whole thing just pushed everything down at the bottom right there. So this trim, as much as it protects the car, right now it's more protecting the back tire from throwing something forward. But what's going to happen, we're going to get a buildup like this, and it's going to rust behind it. There is not much you can do about that. The only thing you can do is keep an eye on it. Make sure maybe after 5 or 7 years, remove the trim, look behind it. If the paint looks bad, paint it back. Just under the trim. You don't need to do the whole door. Just under the trim. Nobody's going to see it. Just make sure you protect that. Because what's going to happen, it's going to get that buildup of ice expanding, coming back, expanding again, As soon there's a crack, water gets inside of it, it expands, push the paint, start rusting in the back, and then you're gonna start getting chunk of paint ripping away, and literally getting just primer up to the air, and then bare metal to the air, and then rust. So that's really not good. That's not something that I want. And when I see a big buildup like this means the old turbulence goes mainly at the bottom of that door, like I said, but usually at least half of the door is rug guard. That's not so bad. And a middle door like this is easy to puff. But when you get this in a corner like this, and I don't know if you can see it on the 4Runner, but you actually got a really big lump right there. See that angle inside of it? So this is getting sandblast. And not just sandblast. That means all the rocks, the smaller rocks, even there's less lines. We see a few of them right there. Those are literally, that's more water. Sorry about that. Really straight lines. Those are the rocks that are being caught in that turbulence. And the whole thing just hammered this corner. And what's going to happen? You're going to get rock chip similar to the hood. So if you know what a rock chip for a hood looks like, check if I can get one on the armor. That's actually a... yeah, it is. So that's one of the rock chip. That's what it looks like. So you got a rock that hits, make a hole, break it open, and then we see the primer in the back, and sometimes it's the metal. So that is usually being seen in the front of the vehicle if you do a lot of highway or you're following people a bit too close. You know, when you're tailgating, you actually just sandblasting your front. It's not worth it. But you'll find the exact same type of damage to that side, and you will need to fill it up because this is going to rust and then this is going to get damaged. Then you have to either change the whole skirt, but what's going to happen? The inside is going to rust too. So then you need to change the whole door, and it costs a lot of money. So just make sure to prevent this little trim to get too bad. So either, I don't know, rust check or whatever you use to oil your vehicle to protect it. But make sure to cover behind that, and make sure that this, as soon as it gets rock chips, you fill them up. It's gonna live a winter, it's fine, but make sure it's covered just after the winter, right? Then if we keep going, we see all the result of the accumulation. It's pretty much just the result of the turbulence, the buildup, big water droplets, just flies over. I would say usually that it builds up around the window, but as you can see on those, there's nothing. All the top is pretty clean in itself. That means all the accumulation is on the handles, and then the water just splatter from the handles towards the back, right? And the turbulence is just spinning and spinning at the bottom and building up and throwing it back. So from a fact, I know this vehicle got its first winter, and I spotted rock chip on the other side that was exactly on that spot. And that's why I was thinking I need to make a video to help people to understand how dirty their car is and what it means. Here is interesting, right? Not the drop from the window, but that buildup. It's pretty similar to what we saw in the front. The only difference, it's not close to the engine, so it doesn't dry up from the heat from the engine. So we can actually see we got water dripping from the window and building up here, and the fact it's already frozen, because I guess the water comes from the back. It builds up behind the bumper, and it must follow the body until it get kind of squeezed and get popped right there. This is going to be a buildup. This is metal. This is plastic. We're going to get, again, a bolt with a clip. That means that clip is going to rust and break. So again, keep an eye on it. So the best thing for those type of clip, make sure you oil them from the back, the bottom. Just shoot them as heavy as you can if your car is brand new. If it's an old car, the chance is already rusted, and oiling it won't make much of a difference, sadly. But if you ever change it, make sure to oil it. And yeah, I hope you don't break them. But anyways, beside that, if we look at this, we see all the splatter, everything's fine. We see the bottom. Look at that buildup. So what does that mean? That means the 4Runner, for a reason or another, will get this rusting, and we're gonna get rock chips out of it. So go figure. So an engineer that's designing a car will try to make it as aerodynamic as possible to save on gas, make it as efficient and stable on the road, and at the same time they kind of want to prevent as much rust as possible. But it is impossible. You cannot completely get a perfect system within a whole scenario from a car, whatever the model. There's always something that's going to happen. So when you look at a vehicle, you will learn from it. When you look at the Hummer and you look at that splatter, I didn't use it for a little while, so it's not as dirty as the other one, but you can see all that splatter, right? Comes from there, big buildup on the fender. Front fender is not that bad, mirror is not that bad, but you see all those lines coming up, and that's where sandblast the handle. We can actually see the line starting, and you see all those rocks and build up, hitting, tack, 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 right there. And then it goes a bit up and hit the side of the window. That's another place it's gonna rust. And when you look in the back, same thing. It's gonna rust there, and those trim, those black trim, are gonna get damaged too over time. We got again that, you see all the lines building up, hitting right on the handle, and that beautiful trim is completely covered. And if you got an Hummer, I'm pretty sure that you know what's happening behind that trim. It's completely rusted. Usually it cut off completely the paint and it peels off. But when you look at the back, it's actually not bad. But you see all the buildup from that tire building up there and the other one pushing everything behind it. Usually that side of that back door will be completely rusted and is something that you need to keep an eye on. So if you're a Hummer owner, the most important part you need to check, it's the hood, to make sure you don't have too much rock chip like mine does. And that's a, what now, 4 years old paint job, I think. I don't remember when I painted, actually. I have to check it out. But you have to check for the rock chip, then check your handles. You may check the corner of the mirror just to make sure it's not too damaged. Usually just polish them. For the handles, there's not much you can do. Like I said, you can get those transparent kind of protector tape to cover them, but beside that, it's not much. Rock chip, there. That little trim needs to be painted and protected, because if it starts to rust, you'll need to change the whole slider down, and it's a pain. It's not fun to do. It's not a big pain, but it's not fun. You have to strip the door open and etc. Rock chip right there, same thing. Same thing with the handle. Remove that cover, that trim cover. If I remember, it's 4 bolts from the inside of the door, and 2 to 3 bolts from around the wheel well. You remove it, clean, paint, oil, put it back, and do that at least once per 5 years. If it's never been done, check it out, boys, because your Hummer are getting old, and this is exactly where the buildup is going to be. Beside that, everything else is pretty normal. For the Hummer, actually, if you open your back door, you get an edge at the bottom with a piece of metal, and usually there's a huge buildup. Because the Hummer is so high, there's a lot of turbulence under it, and that just builds up and gets itself just behind where there's the back of your bumper and the back of the frame. So big buildup over there. And that is why the hoses for the gas tank usually rust with all the rest. So I know it's a weird video. It's completely different. I'm not even sure if anybody else did that in the past, but yeah, knowing the patterns on your vehicle will give you a hint of what type of vehicle it is. This is a stable vehicle on the highway. Solid pressure from the top, big turbulence at the bottom. That means a lot of pressure here, a lot of pressure from the top. That means this car sits on the road. When we look at the Hummer, big pressure of wind to the side, big spray. So that means this hit like a truck or a wall. We got turbulence from the front, but it's so dense, there's nothing actually that can go there. So the whole thing is always pushed to the side, and there is nothing that goes over the top. So we don't have that slick wind from the top that goes down. There's nearly nothing influencing all those markings. Those are just sprays from the tires. That means the Hummer doesn't have any or barely any aerodynamics. The whole thing is just like driving a wall. So it's not as stable on a long run or on the highway, but doing 4x4 it's fine. But at the same time, the shape then doesn't matter, right? It's like the same for this one. The shape doesn't matter if you're just running at 30 miles per hour, right? So anyways, so just to show you, you can actually learn from your vehicle from there. But yeah, so this was my small video. I hope you guys enjoy. I'll try to start back making other videos slowly and back working on the Hummer. I promise working on the brakes for you guys and show you all the steps with greasing the pins and etc. So we'll see from there. So on this, I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys around.